Hi, I'm Justin McCarthy, CEO of the Irish Farmers Journal. You're all very welcome to the Great Agri-Food Debate 2022. Students from food and agriculture from third level colleges across Ireland and the UK are gathering virtually for the 7th Annual Great Agri-Food Debate. This is a joint initiative between Dawn Meats and McDonald's, who are proud to be supporting the next generation of business leaders. The topic to be debated here is regenerative agriculture is the future of farming, something certainly very topical at the minute. Just like to introduce the two teams who will be debating this subject. They are Progressive Young Farmers UK and CAFRE NI. Proposing the motion are the team from Progressive Young Farmers, and opposing the motion are CAFRE. The stance taken by the teams are the positions they have been assigned by random draw and do not necessarily reflect their own point of view. Very keen to get your interaction, so please use the hashtag #GreatAgriFoodDebate. You will notice that your microphones have been muted automatically, and we ask you to kindly keep muted unless you are speaking. So off to look at who is going to be judging these teams and who will have the enviable task of picking a winner. Delighted to invite the judges to introduce themselves. First up, Michael Lahoff, Head of Corporate Banking with Bank of Ireland.
Thanks, Justin, and good morning, everyone. Delighted to be here to judge this morning's debate. As Justin says, my name is Michael Lahoff. I'm Head of Corporate Banking for the Island of Ireland, but also previously in the last number of years, I also would have headed up our small business and agriculture business in Bank of Ireland too. So best of luck, everyone, in this morning's debate.
Thank you, Michael. Now over to Cathal O'Connor, Business Unit Head at AIB.
That's great. Thanks very much, Justin, and good morning to both PYF and CAFRE. I look after the food and agri and healthcare sectors for corporate banking with AIB. Great to be here for the 7th edition of this debate. Very interesting topic, so looking forward to being inspired by both teams, and very best of luck to PYF and CAFRE.
Thank you, Michael. Neil Adams, Promar International.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. Good morning, everybody. It really is a pleasure to be here, and I'm really looking forward to this debate. Regenerative agriculture is something that we're facing all the time with our clients. I'm actually the managing director of a company called Promar International. We're based in the UK. We're about 100 consultants, and certainly this is an area, sustainability in general, that we're really looking into. So I'm hoping to learn a lot today. I wish you all the best of luck with your presentations. Thank you.
And also Michael Murphy, Head of Talent and HR at Board BIA.
Delighted to be here today for the debate. Really great topic, very relevant to Origin Green and sustainability, and really looking forward to some really lively points.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, guys, time to get the show on the road, and I'm delighted to introduce the teams from PYF and CAFRE to the stage. Okay, now that we have our two teams ready, our PYF and CAFRE ready to take to the stage, we will just go through some of the key rules. Detailed rules have been shared with all participants in advance of the debate, but some of the points to note: the team captains will open and close the debate and introduce their teammates. Each speech will last for up to a maximum of 5 minutes. Time will be monitored by a designated timekeeper. Stephen's decision will be final. At 4 minutes, you will hear time. At 5 minutes, you will hear time up. Interrupting a student while they are speaking is not allowed. And after each speaker, 1 point of information may be offered by the competing team, of which it may be accepted or rejected. Points of information are not allowed following the captain's closing arguments. So, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to kick off this debate. Regenerative agriculture is the future of farming, and I would like to invite Isla Suter, captain for the proposing team, PYF, to open the debate.
Good morning, judges, members of the opposition, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this year's virtual Great Agri-Food Debate. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Isla Suter, and I stand before you as a proud captain of the McDonald's Progressive Young Farmers team. It's a privilege to propose that regenerative agriculture is the future of farming. Before we progress any further, let me ask you a question. Is there really any future without regenerative agriculture? Well, think of a world that is polluted, that is highly affected by climate change, that is not economical, ethical, or sustainable. Ponder on that thought for a second. According to the World Resources Institute, today we use 1/3 of the planet's surface to produce food. By 2050, our planet will be home to another 3 billion people. Therefore, we will need to double food production in order to keep up with the demand. The world's population must be equal. How will we feed all these people? How will we grow more food? Where will we grow more food? Today, it takes 1 litre of water to create 1 calorie of food. That's 1,300 litres for only 1 kilogram of rice. The real question we must consider is, can we do more with less? Less chemicals, less nitrogen, less inputs. Overall, as an industry, producing less wastage. Think of a planet with more high-calorie crops, with more crop per drops, a planet where agriculture is regenerative and can be part of the solution to biodiversity loss and climate change. My team and I believe there is no future without regenerative agriculture. Agriculture is the world's largest industry, with pastures and cropland occupying for around 50% of the Earth's habitable land, which in turn provides habitat and food for a multitude of species. The term regenerative agriculture has gained popularity over the last 5 years when talking about a new way of farming that would benefit the land and the consumer. Many would just assume this term to be about soil health. However, it's so much broader than that. The term was first defined by American Robert Rodale, being defined as a holistic approach to farming that encourages continuous innovation and improvement for environmental, social, and economic measures. In the famous words of Albert Einstein, the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. Therefore, we propose we need to be accepting and flexible to the motion of change within the sector of food production. Today, my team and I will take you on a journey of regenerative agriculture. Tristan will discuss with you today about soil health and why it's important to maintain crop yield and increase crop resilience. Whereas William will give you an insight into the benefits of regen for climate change, from changing land management practices, improving efficiency, profitability, and reduce inputs, and finally, ability of regenerative practices to mitigate natural disasters caused by climate change. Hebe is going to explain how regenerative agriculture offers a new mindset and approach to traditional farming, and how regenerative farming businesses with opportunities for lower input costs and new revenue streams can transform farmers' livelihoods and well-being, which is essential for our farming communities and the future of agriculture. Throughout this debate, I want you to have the future of the planet in mind, creating the image of how regenerative agriculture can play a vital role in our future. The opposition panel will be discussing about how regenerative agriculture is niche, unproven, and won't be able to feed a growing population. However, to counteract that, in practice, regenerative agriculture is more productive, requires minimal inputs, and can be mainstream. Yet we believe that in the long run, moving towards regenerative agriculture will be the best decision for our leaders. I urge you to listen closely and support the Progressive Young Farmers team for our proposal of regenerative agriculture is the future of farming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I would like to invite any points of order from CAFRE, please.
Yes, can I put forward a point of information, please?
Go ahead.
Isla, you have been saying that regenerative farming has only been established over this past 5 years, but I've been using clover and cover crops on our farms for over a decade. It's been around for decades, but we've been using it on my farm personally for the past 20 years. How can you only say that it's only been around this last 5 years when it's been here for decades?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So over the 5 years, it's got more popular. So it's been around for, as you said, decades, but it's starting to get more popular. So people are really understanding what the term means, and it's in social media and people reading on it more as well. It really goes back to each practice being different, so each farming have their different ways. But yeah, it's getting more popular now over the last 5 years and more people understanding what it means.
Thank you, Isla. I would now like to invite Emma Ross, the captain for the opposing team, CAFRE, to make her opening address.
Good morning, Chairperson, adjudicators, our esteemed judges, and to the members of the opposition. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the virtual Great Agri-Food Debate. My name is Emma Ross, and my teammates and I from CAFRE are proud to be strongly and passionately opposing the motion that regenerative agriculture is the future of farming. Firstly, some knowledge for the opposition. Agriculture was first established 12,000 years ago, and since then, its practices have created a reliable food supply for the world's population. A population that is set to grow to 10 billion by 2050, may I add. On a traditional family farm like my own, farming includes everything from managing animal health, nutrition, and soil and water management, care of biodiversity, and most importantly, turning a modest profit. If we are not in business, how can we care for the land? Can you honestly tell me how regenerative agriculture can do all these things when its principles focus solely on soil health, carbon sequestration, and earthworm populations, with profitability nowhere to be seen? Do you expect the traditional farming family that is about to face the toughest financial decade in British and Irish farming history to eat earthworms or even worse, lab-grown meat for dinner? Surely not. The term regenerative is defined as a naturally regenerating process, just like the ewes producing lambs every spring on my own farm. The definition regenerative agriculture, however, changes like the weather, with the most recent definition being farming techniques and methods of land management that are designed to restore soil productivity and reducing the input of synthetic chemicals and mechanical compaction. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that not just organic farming in disguise? Now, let me tell you a little story about my family farm in the Orchard County of Armagh, where generations have farmed using conventional methods. My farm has good fertile, carbon storing, compaction-free soil, because we want our cows to go out to graze, not to swim. It has many flourishing hedgerows that keep my sheep from wandering around Market Hill, as well as providing habitats for all sorts of creatures. These practices has allowed my family farm to become more efficient, sustainable, and profitable. If these conventional agriculture methods are harming the environment, as the proposition seem to think, then why on the crisp mornings of March do I, like the generations before me, hear the dawn chorus start and see little lambs skipping across the lush green pastures? Today, my teammates will be explaining to you why regenerative agriculture is not an option for the future of farming. Firstly, my teammate Rhonda Curry, a girl who knows a thing or two about dairy farming, will be detailing the vital role agriculture plays in global food security. This idea of regenerative agriculture will ultimately destroy and result in many negative consequences on food production, biodiversity, and the future of not only my family farm, but yours too. Annual Stewart will then go forward to show why regenerative agriculture is nothing more than a simple fad of multi-million-pound companies like Microsoft and Facebook who are buying up UK agricultural land in an attempt to offset their global emissions. Are Facebook likes more important than ending world hunger? Helen Clinton will talk you through our vision for the future of farming systems and how she can guarantee that KFC will not run out of chicken again. We have seen targets for climate change and world hunger set in the past, which have not yet been achieved. It deeply concerns me that regenerative agriculture will be proposed here today as a solution to climate change. But is it really? These methods have had minimal impact on emissions, and it most definitely will not match the level of food productivity that conventional agriculture can deliver. With current world issues, there are already food shortages. Do we really want to be adding to this problem? We must be the generation that acts now, not next week or the week after, or even the year, but now, using practical, conventional research methods of farming to meet the increased demand in global food production to feed everyone from Portadown to Puerto Rico. As David Attenborough has said, unless we sort this out now and sort it out properly, our world will cease to exist as we know it. It would be foolish to replace scientifically proven conventional agriculture practices with purely research regenerative methods, which companies like McDonald's are only starting to trial. I, for one, will not be basing my farm decisions on a purely research and short, quick fix fad such as regenerative agriculture. With all this in mind, I am keen to once again remind you of CAFRE's opposition to the motion that regenerative agriculture is the future of farming. We urge you all to take a realistic approach to the disposable, simple and easy fix regenerative solutions that I am sure progressive young farmers will put forward here today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Emma. I now invite PYF to make any points of information.
Point of information.
Go ahead.
Yeah, accept.
You state that it's reliable, profitable. However, there's been a 40% drop in wheat yield in 2018. 8.4 million people in the UK are hungry, and farmer take-home has dropped year on year. How do you state that that is reliable and profitable?
Well, I read on the internet actually this week that regenerative methods, unless we will decrease by 40%, will decrease our production by 40%. So, like, is really conventional farming the issue here when regenerative agriculture is the one decreasing their production levels?
Thank you, Emma. I'd now like to invite Rhonda Curry from the opposing team in CAFRE to make her address.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rhonda Curry, and I would like to strongly second our opposition to the motion that regenerative agriculture is the future of farming. Farming families like my own are at the heart of rural communities across the land. Over the years, we have shown considerable resilience and determination. Tell us how far to go, and we will go further. Tell us to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by net zero by 2050. We say let's do it by 2040. We are the only sector in the world that contributes to 14 of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, including ending world hunger. Today, around the world, 500 million family farms are working tirelessly to provide food, employment, and deliver environmental services. To put it simply, agriculture is the backbone of the world we live in. In 2021, the UK agricultural sector alone contributed 12.5 billion to the national economy and employed over 500,000 people directly on UK farms. Our green pastures are known worldwide for producing nutritious, low-carbon food. However, the proposition we'll propose here today that such traditional agriculture is depleting our fertile soils, killing biodiversity and causing climate change, something that is utterly untrue. And I strongly urge the proposition here today to wake up and smell the coffee. Farmers are the true custodian of the land. They plant the fields every spring with cereals that turns from grain to harvest honey and produce calcium-rich milk because, let's face it, them bones need calcium. The guaranteed supply of sustainable, safe, nutritious produce to Dawn Meats and McDonald's today and in the future will continue to be the direct result of traditional farming practices. To change such practices to regenerative agriculture would not only put the livelihoods of family farms like my own and every other family farm at risk of going out of business, but such a measure would also increase biodiversity loss and carbon emissions for every litre of milk and tonne of grain produced, destroying all hope our sector has to halting global warming, something I dare say no person in the agri-food sector wants to happen. My family's home farm in County Antrim, one of the 25,000 farms in Northern Ireland that produces enough food to feed 8.5 million people every year. So I reckon that puts my teammates and I in a good place to advise on the future farming system. I have seen firsthand the hard work and graft required to produce food, have milked a stubborn cow or two, and have seen every hour in the clock at lambing time. Like Emma's farm, we too have biodiversity in abundance, with over 15% of our farm planted in hedges full of native tree species from oak to whitethorn. Plant species that chug us in 2021 have shown to supply ecosystem services to 280 plus invertebrates. Irish farms are home to over 13% of semi-natural habitats, and 97% of Irish farmers in a recent survey said they highly value biodiversity. My parents and grandparents have taken care of our animals and land for generations, and to think that going forward this land will be left to go wild and produce little to no food is ridiculous. I have 6 brothers and sisters, all of us brought up on a traditional family farm. From waking up in the morning to hear the birds singing and cows bawling outside, to be greeted by our friendly farm dog Susie on the way down the yard to begin milking, we know firsthand the true value of food and farming. Regenerative agriculture proposed here today sets out to reduce overall livestock numbers, to increase soil carbon stocks and plant our pastures and trees in a bid to reduce emissions. Such practices will not deliver for the future of farming and destroy rural livelihoods and communities in the process. By 2050, we must feed 2.5 billion more people. Half these people will live in Africa. They will need sufficient nutritious food produced with low carbon footprint from farm to fork and clean running water to live. Instead of scaling back and going regenerative, we need to grow a stronger and better global food system, as my teammates Annika and Helen will tell you more about. Lastly, it's important to take into consideration that we are always going to have emissions, and regenerative agriculture isn't going to be the answer to all our prayers. In fact, it's too little, too late. And on that note, I'll leave you with a final thought. No farmers, no food, no future. Thank you.
Okay, and I invite any points of information from PYF.
Point of information.
Oh, you go, Isla.
Okay. So I say 24 billion tonnes of soil is lost around the world every year. How do you propose to feed the growing population with this happening?
With the loss in the soil, repeat that question again, please.
There are 24 billion tonnes of topsoil lost around the world every year. How do you propose to feed the growing population with this happening?
We need to address those issues and come back. We need to address those issues in a bid to reduce those soil losses, adopting and adapting to conventional practices to reduce those, to increase food production for the growing population. Not necessarily adopting regenerative practices, adapt and improve the already existing practices.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I would now like to invite Tristan Batchelor from PYF, who is proposing the motion.
A cheerful good morning to all. Honourable juries, adjudicators, respected teachers, and my fellow competitors. I'm Tristan Batchelor, and today I'd like to second the motion, Regenerative Agriculture is the Future of Farming. As part of my placement, I was lucky enough to visit FEI Farms in Oxford, where they explore and research regenerative agricultural practices. This opened my eyes to how degrading the current farming practices are towards our land, and how regenerative agriculture answers these doubts, looking at working with nature rather than against it, allowing a future for farming. As an industry, farming fundamentally relies upon the soil. Therefore, the future of farming fundamentally depends upon the soil. The core beliefs of regenerative agriculture were born through efforts to rebuild and protect the soil. So if farming is to have a future, we need to move away from the damaging practices and move towards protecting and regenerating our soils. This requires a level of understanding of the indicators that comprise a healthy soil and how these indicators are influenced by certain practices. Principally in regenerative agriculture, you farm the soil ecosystem. It seems perverse to use the soil purely as a medium to supply the crop with artificial inputs. If, as conventional agriculture does, we simply use the soil as a medium, this is no different to a hydroponic system, artificially supplying all the required nutrients. So why, as farmers, when we have an advantage to reduce our input costs in comparison to other production systems, would we choose to ignore it? The future of farming needs to adopt a practice where, rather than using the soil as a medium, we work to create a healthy and active soil that can provide the plants with the nutrition they need. A healthy and active soil supports a healthy and active food web that cycles the nutrients into bioavailable forms. Soil food webs have evolved over many years to create the perfect balance and ratio of fungi to bacteria, the correct volume and activity of biological predators such as protozoa and nematodes. In chemically managed systems, however, the balance of these processes is compromised. A well-balanced soil ecosystem with the correct management of cover crops can eliminate the need for inorganic fertilizer completely by creating a rooting environment that's consistently cycling, therefore retaining and preventing the leaching and volatilization of those precious nutrients. Having a cover crop year-round has also shown considerable benefits to reducing soil erosion, one study finding that increasing root vegetation exponentially decreases soil erosion. Due to current farming practices, each year globally we lose 24 billion tonnes of soil through degradation and desertification. The threat is so severe that the UN Convention to Combat Desertification was organised to minimise these losses. They advised implementing solutions with similar principles to that of regenerative agriculture, with examples ranging from maintaining living roots through keeping green cover while reducing the intensity and frequency of tillage. Regenerative practices cultivate a deep, well-structured root system that builds soil structure so that oxygen, water, and nutrients can move easily through. Though through excessive tillage, however, the soil structure and soil food web balances are destroyed. With drought becoming an increasingly more prevalent factor globally, influencing the future of viability of conventional farming today, such as in 2018, DEFRA published figures stating that extreme weather caused a 40% drop in yields. Many studies show that the key to combating this problem in today's agriculture is increasing infiltration and increasing water holding capacity. As the USDA state, it's known that increasing soil organic matter by 1% increases the capability to hold water by almost 100,000 litres per acre.
Time.
Increasing soil organic matter is a fundamental pillar of regenerative agriculture, and this is made possible by the thriving soil ecosystems incorporating organic manures, cover crops through a mixed rotation. This has been the natural soil cycle for many years, but since we've started introducing artificial inputs and overworking our soils, we've seen a high level of degradation at a rate that is unsustainable. Therefore, I believe the future of farming relies upon rebuilding our soils using regenerative farming practices.
Thank you for that, Tristan. And I invite any points of information.
I'd like to give a point of information, please.
Yes, Rhonda, go ahead.
So this speaker here is just focusing on the soil. Us as farmers in Northern Ireland aren't paid on their soil. This regenerative practices does nothing to help me with the fertility and the welfare of my milk of my cows. So the fungus pores on weeds on fields that's reducing yields is not regenerative. Are you suggesting we spray more fungicides, more herbicides to increase these yields?
No, I'm not suggesting that we do more spraying. Obviously, regenerative agriculture is not a one-size-fits-all, but it's looking at the sort of adapting your processes to fit what you want. So there's a lesser of two evils that's allowed in there. However, with a greater crop diversity, it would allow sort of more biological control of fungus, and then also you've got harboring your sort of what's it called, your preying sort of pests, in that sense that you have to use less pesticides.
Okay, Tristan and PYF, thank you for that contribution. Okay, I'd now like to invite Annika Stewart from CAFRE and on the opposing side to address you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, judges and members of the proposition. My name is Annika Stewart and I'm a proud farmer's daughter and a County Londonderry girl, farming sheep, beef and potatoes, and I stand here today to tell you the limitations of agriculture or regenerative agriculture. Farming has evolved into a global agri-food system during the last 100 years. Daily we trade, import and export all over the world. The United Kingdom produces 64% of its own food and imports the remaining 36%. However, I hear the opposition claims that instead of green pastures, we should establish forests and multi-species swards. Yes, these techniques will reduce emissions up to 25% in farms. However, they will shift agri-food production offshore and reduce our food self-sufficiency. Regenerative practices will achieve local political goals, but it will not reduce global warming, destroying any future in farming. We ensure to maintain a reputation for producing large volumes of high-quality food. We must consider sustainability in everything that we do. Personally, I believe that the opposition must join us in the 21st century, and it's now time to act on climate change. From cradle to plate, we must address emissions. According to AHDB, over 50% of the emissions occur after the farm gate. Regenerative agriculture has no ability to tackle emissions across the entire supply chain. Agriculture has become the scapegoat in the climate change discussions among policymakers. However, Professor Miles Allen from Oxford University recently told the Irish Farmers Journal that agriculture is only the industrial in the world that can achieve net zero and sequester carbon. Planting forests, according to the proposal, will reduce emissions and increase biodiversity. What the opposition haven't told you is that the Irish forestry is on track to become a major carbon emitter in the next 3 to 5 years as the trees planted in the 1990s begin to be harvested. It's like tying a gate with orange baler twine. It's holding for now, but it won't keep the cows off the county road for forever. According to Tagus, a minimum tillage enhances soil's organic content in the top 10 centimetres of the soil. But at 40 centimetres, there is no difference in the soil's organic content if ploughing were employed instead. where we fill the top 10 centimetres, where does the opposition propose we keep the additional CO2? According to AHDB, straw incorporation takes 7 years to increase the soil's carbon by 1%. So opposition, what are you really telling us? It'll be the year 3000 and we will all be living underwater due to the rising the sea levels. Increased soil carbon is great, but if it exceeds 12 to 14%, our soils will become more acidic, like peat soils with a pH of 5.5 to 5.8, making fertilizer less efficient in our crops and releasing up to 20 tonnes per hectare per year. I applaud UCD's multi-species sward study, but these swards don't thrive in all soil types. Let us take off your rose-tinted glasses, for the plant and herb diversity of these swards has been proven to decline after 3 to 4 years, demanding reseeding. Many farmers will also establish such swards in steel seed beds sprayed with herbicides that kill pollinating species. This system doesn't seem very biodiverse in my opinion. McDonald's completed a trial of multi-paddock cell grazing on a 1,500-acre farm with 6 months grass rest period. This isn't realistic for a small-scale family farm in the UK or farmers that work part-time jobs off-farm. Either way, no one has time to move cattle every day. You can't have your cake and eat it. What's best for the environment does not go hand in hand with the practical farming. Only grazing my pastures twice a year would only have a negative impact on my sheep's feedability and performance. As quoted by Eisenhower, farming looks mighty easy when your plough is a pencil and you're 1,000 miles away from a field. As Molly May says, everyone has the same 24 hours in a day, and with my sheep currently lambing around the clock, I personally will be seeking for a full glass measure of precise agriculture that can deliver for climate change, farmers, consumers, and biodiversity. Regenerative agriculture is a passing craze. It's like what's in this week's newspaper will be wrapping next week's chips. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you. And again, I invite any points of information.
Can I raise a point of information, please?
Go ahead.
You all keep talking about rewilding as part of regenerative agriculture. I'd just like you to please define what you think the difference between rewilding and regenerative agricultural practices are, please.
When I look at regenerative agriculture, I think of organic types of farming, meaning that you're going to decrease your stocking numbers and increase your land and increase the biodiversity, like the wildlife corridors and your fields and your general habitats. And like if you're going to increase this, you're going to decrease the amount of animals and like products that you can produce from your farm, which like if the growing population is going to grow to what they say it's going to be, how do we expect to feed the farm? Like how are we meant to feed everybody if we're going to increase biodiversity? Like it's just not going to work.
Thank you, Annika, and thank you, CAFRE, for that contribution. I would now like to invite William Owen from PYF, who is supporting the proposal.
Good afternoon to all, honourable judges, adjudicators, respected teachers and my fellow competitors. Today I would like to express my reasoning behind the view supporting the motion regenerative agriculture is the future of farming. Now there's no doubt that climate change is a global emergency and no doubt that many people are quick to blame agriculture. We believe that regenerative agriculture means we can not only stop being part of the problem, but can actually become part of the solution. Agriculture is a massive emitter of greenhouse gases. AHDB estimates that around 8.5% of global emissions occur from agriculture, and therefore to meet the pledge that many food companies and governments have committed to, and to stop climate change, a systematic change in agriculture production globally is required. This is not about being better for biodiversity or less emitting. It's not even about stopping making things worse. This is about making them better and undoing our damages. We believe opposing to regen is saying yes to the current situation we're in, saying yes to that status quo. We are apex predators in this world, and the world's coped with apex predators for millions of years. However, our greed and the divide we put between ourselves and the natural world has changed things permanently and destroyed the natural world in its entirety. We are a strong believer in the phrase, just because something looks okay, it doesn't mean it is okay, and believe that this knowledge barrier and the need for change in perception is the biggest challenge regenerative agriculture faces. Changing consumer and farm perceptions of what a field should look like, of what food should look like, and of what food production should look like is no doubt a humongous challenge, but what we believe is key to reversing climate change. We've already touched upon how regenerative agriculture's principles centre around managing soil, having a more circular approach to farming, methods such as paddock grazing and allowing grass to grow longer than modern farming methods would traditionally allow. giving more photosynthetic area, more carbon capture, and more organic matter for the soil, reducing the extremes in soil temperatures beneath. It may seem really complicated, this regen thing, but actually it's about decluttering our agricultural systems, the industry, reducing our inputs, and the drains on farm incomes. In a case study we've already touched upon, done by FAI Farms, they've reduced their finishing age from 28 months, the national average, to 21 months for their steers, mainly off grass. Now, not only is this producing a more nutrient-rich, tastier product, but it's also the reducing days to finish, and the reduced feed input of these cattle has massively reduced emissions. Now, there's still then the benefits to the climate and biodiversity of the change in land management style. Improving the infiltration rate through increased organic matter, reduced compaction, not only will hold nutrients better for longer, reducing the artificial inputs and reducing leaching, not only does this increase carbon capture in the soil and reversing climate change, but it actually mitigates the effect of climate change already. Flash flooding and fires are less prevalent when land is managed regeneratively. Now, the common question we've already heard is, well, who's going to pay for this? It's just not realistic. But the point is, no one does need to pay for this. It doesn't need to be a public good or a private good. It's just as profitable as common modern farming practices and is a very real profit possibility for all farmers. If you can reduce your finishing age of your steers from 28 to 21 months, and you're doing that of grass, I see no way this cannot be more cost effective. It's also less subject to unpredictable weather, able to maintain production with changing weather patterns we're now subject to, able to reduce your input costs, and most importantly, able to compete on the global commodities market with price. But there are more opportunities than just improving profitability and reducing costs. Trading carbon credits or claiming public money for public goods through schemes such as ELMS are very real possibilities when farming regeneratively. For regen to be successful in tackling climate change, it is essential we do not reduce our productivity. The UK is already only 60% self-sufficient in food, as stated by DEFRA in 2021. And if we shifted the problem elsewhere, as you stated, it would not help our climate at all. This is once again where we are keen to state to you, regenerative agriculture is just as productive per acre, not only in the short term, but most importantly, it's more stable and more sustainable in the long term. I am sure there are short-term gains that can be made from intensifying, increasing your inputs, simplifying your rotation. However, farming unsustainably, you're purely delaying the problem and in fact stealing food from tomorrow's generation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, William. I'd now like to invite any points of information, please.
I have a point of information.
Yeah, go ahead, Emma.
You said that agricultural emissions are causing global warming relating to natural disasters. But tell me this, Australia is one of the biggest contributors of regenerative agriculture. Where was all this regenerative soil when Australia was on fire in 2020?
So climate change isn't actually a nationally based issue. The impact of one country affects the whole climate. Climate change is a global issue. So poor practice in China, for example, would still have a massive effect on rising temperatures in Australia. Nobody's farming in Antarctica, but the ice caps are still melting. That's how it works.
Thank you, William and PYF, for that contribution. I would now like to invite Helen Clinton to address you from CAFRE, who is opposing the motion.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Helen Clinton, and today, along with my teammates, I am here to show you that regenerative agriculture is not the future of farming. Many regenerative examples presented today by the opposition are in fact just past and present methods of farming, just good old simple, no-nonsense farming. So let's look to the future. Look all around. Science is everywhere, and it has advanced how we live, farm, communicate, and protect our planet. Today, alongside feeding our chickens, my mother, like many other farmers, must also maintain fertile soils, lower her carbon footprint, operate at high welfare standards, and don't forget to fix the faulty feeder at the bottom of the house because Bren and her pals are having a food frenzy. All of this on top of feeding 10 billion people by 2050? What a day. Rockville and Spar need a guaranteed supply of healthy, tasty chicken for their customers 365 days a year. Now, I ask myself, what will deliver from farm to fork? My money is on precision agriculture, driven by science and technology. Now, I'm not just talking about Alexa or Jeremy Clarkson's drone sheepdog. I am talking about practical measures like milk recording, selecting high EBV cows, precision nutrition, and carbon calculators. They are all will all be required to increase production levels of cereals and meat by up to 60% on using existing agricultural land. Failing to do so, we will risk losing our rainforests and the biodiversity that comes with them. Teagasc and AFBI have both presented farmers with solutions to reduce emissions and drive forward sustainability of the UK and Irish agri-food sectors. Surprisingly, regenerative agriculture was not a phrase on the list. But genetics, animal health, finishing times, age at first calving, output per head, protected urea, 3-NUP feed additive, and green agriculture were all on the list. Now, this isn't a pipe dream. Future policy and environmental farming schemes for our sector include targets for these. Grass without fertilizer is like a diet for me without protein. I just won't function to any great capacity. Lower nutrient demanding grasses developed by Germinal will also help grow more grass using less fuel. It is advancements like these, along with data recording of our animals, matching the right genetics to our systems, improving feed efficiency, animal health, and lowering antibiotic usage, which have not been mentioned today by our opposition, will be at the forefront of farming in the future. By 2050, 70% of the world's populations will live in cities. Hydroponic farms like Thanet Earth, growing 700,000 cucumbers and peppers each week, are going to be the future of veg producers. Underground train stations transformed into farms using 100% renewable LED energy are growing microgreens and salad leaves to feed these urban populations. Something else the opposition has not told you today is that the global agri-food system has a major flaw. This just-in-time logistics just won't cut the mustard. The global pandemic has exposed this. Supermarket shelves were empty. Using precision technology and integrated supply monitors can help fix this flaw and reduce food waste around the world.
Time.
It will be precision technology that verifies carbon stocks and underpins the integrity of any future carbon trading schemes. Current old book inventories for measurement of greenhouse gases fall short in helping farmers meet climate change targets. The science of today is the technology of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. I now invite any points of information from PYF.
Point of information.
Go ahead.
I'll be keen to state regenerative agriculture is all about science, data, and precision technology. Many of the things you stated can be done alongside regenerative agriculture and can be done alongside it.
Is that the question? Sorry, what's the question?
Yeah, it's just pointing out that is also a fact. Response to that?
Well, I accept this, but organic farming has been around for years. This is regenerative farming. It's not something new. So why don't we use conventional methods, along with science and technology to improve the yields and our animals' health and well-being?
Thank you, Helen, for your contribution to the debate. Okay, I would now like to invite Toby Thomas to address you from PYF, who is proposing this motion.
Good morning, Chairperson, Adjudicator, and members of the opposition. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Hebe Thomas, and I'm here today to support the motion that regenerative agriculture is the future of farming. Far from being just a soil-based movement, regenerative agriculture is actually a rounded way of running a farming business with the intention of creating economic, environmental, and social benefits to those in and around the farm. Regenerative agriculture is, in fact, as much for the people as it is for the soil and the environment, linking the triple bottom line that many businesses strive for: people, planet, and profit. This is something that I think you would all agree that many farmers overlook. Farmers work tirelessly around the clock, their minds full of what they currently need to get done. I doubt many farmers take time out and reflect on their passions and purpose. Unrestricted by rules and regulations, farming regeneratively is accessible to all and puts farmers' well-being and livelihoods at the centre of their decision-making. And it's agonising to see urban populations brand farmers as destroying the planet and producing unsustainable food. Farmers seem to be public enemy number one. So, it's not surprising that a recent study found that 88% of farmers under the age of 40 rank poor mental health as the biggest problem they face today. Therefore, no matter how much we focus on food production, we cannot ignore the fact that farmers' mental health is a problem that needs to be addressed. And regenerating farming businesses with a holistic approach, having farmers' mental health in the forefront, is a stepping stone in the right direction. Regenerating farms can have so many positive effects and personal achievements. For example, working to increase soil fertility whilst improving wildlife habitats, reducing spray and fertilizer usage by introducing livestock on arable land, or perhaps reconstructing the farm around education and the local community to promote farmers' wider image to the public. These are just a few examples of the many opportunities of regenerative farming. It creates a viable future for the next generation and, overall, elevating the image of all farmers to where they should be, as custodians of the countryside and producing a balanced diet for the nation. And I think the opposition have failed to see how farmers and farming communities are being threatened. For example, in Wales, farmers are being displaced with multi-million-pound companies buying land to plant trees to offset their carbon emissions. How are farmers in Wales meant to compete with this? Farmers are constantly battling between the decision to convert their land to trees or to produce food with little financial return. Can you tell me how turning all of this productive land to tree planting and rewilding is sustainable and ethical when agriculture is Wales' biggest employer and when there are 8.4 million people in the UK struggling to afford to eat? Regenerative agriculture sequesters carbon, reducing the land needed to be turned solely into carbon sinks, allowing farmland to be both producing food and sequestering carbon. Alongside producing food and selling commodities, this gives farmers a new income stream through selling carbon credits and potentially biodiversity.
Time.
Along with this, regenerative agriculture hugely reduces input costs due to less machinery and fuel expenditure and almost eliminating fertilizer costs. Therefore, regenerative agriculture put farms of all scales in more control of their input costs, whilst not limiting production. This is a win-win situation for everyone. So, for farmers, for the environment, and for food production, the future of agriculture must be regenerative. So, to live as if we'll die tomorrow and farm as if we'll live forever.
Thank you for that, Hebe, and I invite any points of information from CAFRE.
Yes, point of information, please.
Yes, Helen, go ahead.
So Hebe mentioned that urban areas are ruining our ecosystems. Why don't we use hydroponics or vertical farming as you just go up, you don't go out?
Yeah, I don't think I mentioned that urban areas is destroying the ecosystem. I think I mentioned that urban populations are branding farmers as destroying the planet. And vertical farming can come into it as long as it's regenerative. But I think it's more the fact that urban populations are saying that farmers are unsustainable, producing unsustainable food, when really we need to take a step back. And if farmers can be regenerative, they're actually part of solving the problem, not part of the problem.
Okay, thank you, Hebe and PYF, for that contribution. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our main contributions to a close. What the only outstanding business now is for both parties to give their concluding remarks. First of all, I invite Emma Ross from CAFRE to make the closing remarks for her team.
Thank you for the opportunity to let CAFRE join this year's Great Agri-Food Debate. For the final time today, I would like to remind you of CAFRE's opposition to the motion that regenerative agriculture is the future of farming. I hope by now that the facts and reasonings that myself and my teammates have put across have hit home. Before the proposition get too carried away rebranding the LEAF scheme created 30 years ago, let me remind you of the many challenges traditional family farms face daily. My teammate Rhonda Curry's farm income is based on milk sales, healthy calves, and healthy soils. I find it very rude of the proposition to sit here today and ignore the role of genetics, animal welfare, financing, labour, all key elements of farming. Increasing soil organic matter will, yes, offset emissions, but will limit phosphorus binding sites in the soil, increasing the phosphorus eutrophication to our rivers. There will be no fish fillet left for McDonald's. Reducing tillage and limiting spray applications will have a huge decreasing effect on crop yields, increased disease and seed contamination. If this is to feed 10 billion people, we are here in for an uphill battle, let me tell you. We now use 1 billion less hectares of land to grow crops than in 1950, produce 6 times more meat, key staples of our diet. We wouldn't want poor Helen going hungry now, would we? These increases are the direct result of genetic gains, increased soil fertility, use of innovation practices, highlighting the key function that traditional farming has in our economy, rural communities, and world food security. William, you said regenerative is not all about lowering emissions, soil health, or biodiversity. Is your head in the sand when it comes to the challenges we are facing in farming? Current policy changes to meet net zero may put thousands of farmers off the land, including the 23,000 farms supplying McDonald's every day. Lab-grown Big Mac, it will be. I don't think so. I will not pretend that there are no barriers to adopting precision agriculture techniques, but I hope that I and my teammates have shown you that the benefits of implementing these techniques are well worthwhile. Precision agriculture is not a means of intensification or standardization of farming. It is the use of technology as the first link in the chain of improving practices to progress further, enabling more to be done with less. As we have reinforced throughout our proposal of the debate, the fundamentals of good farming practice must remain paramount in implementation. There is currently no knowledge on the effect of regenerative agriculture on animal welfare, water quality, or food quality, all which are now being researched by Landcare New Zealand. I may have grew up on the sheep shed, but you won't pull the wool over my eyes when it's clear to say that regenerative agriculture has little to no research to even support it. At least once in your life, you will need a doctor, a lawyer, a preacher, and a policeman. But 3 times a day, every day, you will need a farmer. And we, as farmers and producers for the next generation on this earth, propose that precision agriculture is the only viable future to feed 10 billion people, 3 times a day, every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. I now invite Isla Schutter from the proposition to make her closing remarks.
Judges, members of the opposition, ladies and gentlemen, in today's debate, my fellow teammates have delivered a clear and concise argument on why regenerative agriculture is the future of farming. The topic we are proposing is hugely diversified, as agriculture represents 60% of our greenhouse gases, as well as 90% of our water footprint. It is vital to maintain and develop new practices to become more sustainable and viable. We live in a world today that is consumer driven, and we must provide the population with what is desired: healthy, affordable food that doesn't degrade our environment. We are already seeing that the consumers are looking to source more of their food locally. They want to know how it's produced, know their purchases having a positive impact on the environment. Well, regenerative agriculture can do this and so much more. We stand before you today to propose that regenerative agriculture plays an important role in the future of farming and what the key values are that our sector holds. Regenerative agriculture has been predicted to have an increased focus on healthy ecosystems when compared with conventional agriculture. As Hebe mentioned earlier, this practice aims to develop a framework to assess and capture the economic and social benefits of improved ecological functions and associated environmental outcomes. These can be achieved from adopting regenerative agriculture or other innovations that generate an improvement in the soil health, as Tristan mentioned. The largest challenge we have with the adoption of regenerative practices is a mindset to change required by the agricultural sector. The evidence is clear and the benefits are clear. We need more innovative farmers to adopt regenerative practices to allow others to see the benefits and build a community of farmers driving solutions to the challenges we see and experience. There are challenges to come that fulfills the need for evidence and productivity, as well as profitability and resilience benefits to farmers from regenerative agriculture, as well as the wider ecological benefits to the society that healthy soils bring. This is such as impacts on human health, nutrient-rich food production, clean water and air, as well as the changes to the health of agro-ecosystems and the biodiversity. I commend CAFRE for carrying out research on the topic today, yet we must think about the bigger picture. As agriculture continues to suffer from a loss of community, soil degradation and economic hardship, the drive for farmers to make a change grows day by day. It appears to show that regenerative agriculture is the way forward, as the opposition wouldn't have you believe. Therefore, in essence, we are completely convinced that this is the way forward. Emma, you mentioned that regenerative agriculture is not profitable, that it focuses mainly on the soil. And Rhonda, you discussed that it's not a method of traditional farming. However, this is not the case. It's so much more than that. Regenerative agriculture is a traditional way of farming, but just adapted with better practices for the long run. Anika, you mentioned about increasing biodiversity and increasing the land use. However, we're trying to use the land more efficiently. We acknowledge that there are challenges as part of these new practices, but with challenge comes perseverance. With hardship from our farmers comes resilience and resolutions. Then with purpose comes strength and understanding. Therefore, with the input from passionate farmers and driven organisations, as a collective, we can help provide support and help to reach goals. If there is one message you take from today's debate, let it be: regenerative agriculture is not about being classed as a tag. It's more about the principles within it. The efficiency of food production worldwide is now a huge priority. Now, I'd like to ask you the same question. Is there a future without regenerative agriculture? Just think about it. A big thank you to Dawn Meats McDonald for sponsoring this event, and to all the organisers and judges in providing this opportunity for us to speak to yourselves today. On behalf of myself and my fellow teammates, thank you very much for listening.
Isla, thank you very much for that. And to you and Emma, congratulations on leading your team to have such a robust and respectful debate. Just also to acknowledge on behalf of CAFRE, the non-opposition speakers, Zoe Weir and Lawrence White, who no doubt put a lot of work into the background. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our formal debate to a close. Again, a big thank you to PYF and CAFRE, to Isla, to Emma, to Rhoda, to Tristan, to Anika, William, Helen, Herbie, Emma, and of course Zoe and Lawrence behind the scenes as well. I think we've had an exceptionally robust debate, a lot of work and a lot of research gone in, and certainly a lot for us all to think about, no matter where we stand in relation to the proposal that regenerative agriculture is the future of farming. Well done again to PYF and CAFRE for putting forward such robust debates on either side of the argument.